Welcome to today's on-demand webinar presented by Capgemini, ServiceNow, and ISG. Today's webinar is titled Unlock the Power of Digital, and the service line we are talking about is Digital Service Integration and Management. Next, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. I'm pleased to be with David Rudell, who leads the Digital SIAM practice at Capgemini, and Dave Arms, who leads the Inspire architecture practice at ServiceNow. They will give further details about themselves and their experience with service integration during their presentations. They are both experts in this field, and ISG has had the privilege to interact with them and their companies during recent research that we conducted for a study we completed on the SIAM ITSM market. It was not surprising, and in fact, it was anticipated to see both of them positioned as leaders in numerous categories within our study. My name is Jan-Erik Acey, and I'm a director and principal analyst within ISG Research. I'm also the global head for the ISG Provider Lens report series. I'm happy to announce that Capgemini is offering free downloads of that report on their website. At the end of the webinar, I will point out where you can get access to the report, as well as numerous other resources both companies have made available to you. We're all here to help you with your specific business needs. As part of that recent study, ISG looked back at the history of both governance, vendor management, and its evolution to SIAM, and then the quick uplift to a coactive governance model, or as many now refer to it as digital SIAM, or even enterprise service management. You know, I've been intimately involved in this area since 2000, which was the beginning of my last decade with American Express and Ameriprise Financial. In 1999, I was asked to play an oversight role. The idea that someone would be a full-time vendor management just wasn't even considered. And my task was to transition our newly formed outsourcing relationship back to the IT and business owners. You know, we predicted this would only take 10 to 12 months. In actuality, I never left that role, and I grew that team and led it over the next 10 years to eventually a team of about 50 people when I left to become a full-time analyst, actually writing about this topic. As an analyst, I witnessed the shift to SIAM and the adoption of ITIL processes. When I joined ISG in 2014, our approach to SIAM was that it must be a retained function within the enterprise. And our firm and others spent a number of years trying to help enterprise clients stand up an in-house SIAM function. Many service providers like Capgemini saw the writing on the wall very early in this evolution and actually were providing SIAM services from the mid-2000s. In our recent report, we covered dozens of service providers and niche players who are now very successfully running a service integration and management function for their client. It was this shift from the enterprise to the service provider, as well as the number of innovations and improvements brought forward by service providers, that led to the need of a more mature relationship, which is what we're calling coactive governance. Next, ISG witnessed a shift in the types of outsourcing that was happening in the market, which then required a very different type of vendor management or governance. With packaged solutions and routine system maintenance, staff augmentation was actually the norm with T&M type of statements of work. This required a strong VMO, but very little multi-vendor orchestration. Even as enterprises started to diversify their set of vendors, it was still staff augmentation. As enterprises recognized that the value of hiring a CMM level 5 provider could only be realized if they allowed the providers to execute in their own fashion, and as the managed service type SOW became very popular, the need to leverage ITIL processes became actually critical, and thus was born service integration and management. You know, it took a very long time to move out of the TMM or T&M staff augmentation mode, but it didn't take many years for enterprise clients to recognize that they actually weren't capable of executing SIAM on their own. Then with the introduction of Agile and DevOps type SOWs, the market realized that the governance required both parties to be active in order to have success in those engagements. Next, interestingly, the biggest challenge we've seen in the past 20 years are happening right now. The ever-increasing dependency on service providers impacts the processes that enterprise clients are following. The contracts that third-party advisors like ISG are helping them execute, the experience of the enterprise and provider staff, and finally, the risk that is created in these relationships are all challenges that we're facing. ISG is advising and now seeing evidence of more C-suite level executives engaged in setting the expectations and sponsoring the partnerships of these type of investments. This elevated interest from the C-suite is happening both at the client side as well as the service provider side. We're seeing SLAs are morphing to OLAs and XLAs. Collaboration between these different providers and between the provider and the clients who are running some of the functions are now all coming together through OLAs. Customer experience expectation from the business side of the client team is now driving both the SOW requirements and the relationship discussions. We're finding that clients are moving away from managing SIAM, but not their involvement. IT is getting their business partners involved in managing these relationships, and that is actually raising the bar for the providers. The need to be better prepared to talk in business terms, not just technical terms, is one of the key challenges we're seeing. Also, the risk and rewards are changing. We see outcome-based gain share and other examples where both parties share risk and rewards. So let me bring David Rudell into this discussion. David, can you now describe how Capgemini has viewed and managed the SIAM market maturity that I've just described, and how has it impacted your numerous SIAM implementations?
Thanks, Jan-Erik. Appreciate that. Yeah, this is David Rudell. I've had the privilege of working with customers to deploy various evolutions of SIAM and now digital SIAM since 2011. And it's a fascinating capability, and I think of it largely as sort of, if I'm not dating myself too much, the ERP for IT. Really, SIAM is a way of managing the operation of IT, and now as we evolve shared services, to hit the major objectives of service organizations today. And those are, reducing the risk and increasing the quality of the services. Number two would be helping with agility as the requirements of technology and regulatory obligations increase, and the businesses need to move more and more rapidly. SIAM allows you to drive tremendous amounts of agility within the IT or the shared services organization. The other piece is that it helps to really reduce the cost through the elimination of duplication. What we often see is through the organic growth of a number of organizations that provide services is that there's duplication, there's a lack of process alignment, and inefficiencies that are created, and these actually add cost to the overall services. So SIAM can really drive those costs down. But probably most important is that SIAM is really focused on having a business view for the services. In other words, the services are there but to support the business. How do you align those services effectively with the business so that you're meeting the needs as opposed to just providing a non-specific set of tools for the business to use. As we do this, we digitize the office of the CIO. So more and more, the CIO is sitting in a command center and needs to be able to really understand with like sensors in the environment exactly, what is actually happening and to be able to react and plan and respond and change course. And they need the digitization of that office in order to be able to effectively do that. And then second is there's a real thrust in terms of trying to provide a really ideal user experience, not just for your employees, but also for the end customer. And then as the numbers of providers increase, we need to be able to manage these diverse sets of services in order to deliver what the business wants, not what a particular service provider can offer. And then lastly, we've got to continue to innovate. Innovation is at the core of what SIAM does really well. And we all know with COVID, with interruptions in service, with advances in technology, innovation is an absolute mandate for any services organization. Now, as we've talked about SIAM to a number of different customers, it's clear that customers are at various places in their journey. And sometimes there's confusion as to sort of, well, I want to do SIAM, or what's my journey to SIAM? And so I think what's important is to recognize that every customer has their own set of challenges, and every client that we talk to has their own set of objectives. And we've sort of marked some mileposts on the evolution of service, the service evolution journey, into 3 buckets, right? At the very start, you might want to, as we call it, service ticketing. You might want to say, hey, I need to be able to, at the basic level, track my services, and are we responding effectively? Are we tracking our incidents, requests, and changes? And then as part of that, and you've heard this for years, I want to drive a little more self-service in order to get efficiency within the user community. When we've beyond that, what a lot of customers that we talk to are trying to wrestle with is, hey, I've got a number of different providers. They're operating in different ways for these processes. And what I really want to do is drive consistency of the IT services and standardization of those processes. And I want to operate on a single tool set so that I can, really have a better grasp of what's happening and really be able to impact the services that I deliver. And I especially want to be able to do this across the traditional and the modern service methodologies and integrate Agile and DevOps. A number of customers have initiated a sort of a fast IT capability, but they haven't figured out how to mix that with the traditional IT that obviously is going to be around for a bit. And then the second characteristic of a service management office is they want to be able to they need to establish an organization that's really, their charter is to sustain and improve and enhance these tools so that you can make sure that they are consistent across whatever breadth of providers you have. The third bucket, which is what we call digital SIAM, is now really connecting with the business, improving those services in order to meet what the business really needs, and effectively channeling and stitching together the providers so that you're consistent, they're working together, and they're consistently able to bring high levels of automation across whatever mode of IT or shared services you're operating. And then second, to be able to integrate a broader than just standard sort of service management ITIL functions, and to expand into things like program, project, portfolio management, expand into finance, IT finance, consumption and chargeback, and to drive the business relationship, and then to really manage, control, and cover all of this with a governance operation. Lastly is to be able to up-level the employee experience and the end customer experience. As we move more towards digital, it's not enough for shared services and IT organizations to focus on employees. It's time for them to focus on what kind of an end customer experience can I deliver through my services. So these are the three examples of how we've encountered our customers and how we help them in order to move to the next level. But a number of you may be saying to yourself, well, what does that actually mean? What does it look like to be at each one of these stages? So this slide is really sort of a marker for what is it like to have to be at one of these stages, and what do you actually have to have operating in order to be there. So at the service provider support level, you might be tracking your incidents, your requests, your changes. You probably got a CMDB, but that CMDB is probably incomplete. You've got some core stuff in it, but it may not have all the attributes you need to manage the services as a whole. And you may have SLAs, and these SLAs are probably measured by the provider and then reported, right? And that's good stuff to have. But if you want to move up to the next level, it could be a service management office. And we talked about what this would look like, but you've got all your ITIL processes documented. You have a single system of record. And if you think about a complete and robust CMDB, you're probably somewhere close to 60% of that. And that means you've got, 60% would be of having all your business applications, your mapping to all of your infrastructure, and being able to look across that with all the attributes necessary to manage the operation and to provide the appropriate reporting across a number of different disciplines within IT or shared services. When we move into SIAM, you're really talking about having a set of ITIL processes that are tailored for multi-provider SIAM operation with multimodal IT. You've got a single system of record, just like you did before, but you have extremely high levels of automation. One of the things that we've been challenged and we've been able to provide a solution for is how do you reduce the labor cost of managing across the enterprise and drive high levels of automation to bring accuracy and bring efficiency into the operation. And you probably have a CMDB that's somewhere around 95 to 98% accurate in terms of your entire landscape under management. And as I said before, you probably supplemented your SIAM services to add PPM, IT, financial management, and business relationship management and governance into that. And you're operating those within a single system with high levels of automation. So this should give you a picture of, the types of capabilities that we are able to implement at various clients. And I think it's important to note as you look at these different areas that every client has their own set of challenges that they're trying to surmount at any point, and we can help customers at any of these various stages of their service evolution. Now, within the SIAM, as I said before, there are a number of dimensions that you can expand on. And when we're deploying SIAM, it's important to note that it really is extending to financials. How do you measure the cost of IT effectively? How do you then measure what you should be paying your providers? And how do you measure what departments are consuming and how much you should charge them? So the addition of financials, projects, contract management, the IT strategy or the shared service strategy, these are big chunks of what SIAM scope has expanded to include. And various customers will choose to deploy these types of functions at their own pace and their own roadmap that we might develop for them. And then the second dimension that we look at is what levels of automation are they able to deploy, right? They may be focused on service desk bots in order to reduce the cost and increase the efficiency of the service desk and drive that toward a more online interaction rather than a human phone interaction. We've deployed things like process compliance bots, which are very, very key in terms of figuring out, is everybody in the ecosystem following the processes effectively and doing what they're supposed to do? And now we're getting into how do we drive innovation and automation into the towers using the SIAM construct as a vehicle for bringing change to the overall service delivery system. And these include items like auto triage and auto incident resolution. As SIAM has expanded into more shared services, we were delighted because ServiceNow has really embraced this idea that services to IT have a striking similarity to the other SG&A services that any type of an enterprise might be providing. And ServiceNow has also made it very, very effective to deploy automations in the platform. So with that, I'm delighted to pass on to Dave Arms, who will talk about how ServiceNow has been supporting the various pieces of SIAM and the various stages of SIAM in a number of our deployments and for a number of customers. Dave?
Thank you very much, David. Hi, everybody. This is Dave Arms from ServiceNow. So I've been involved in one side or another of the SIAM equation for over 20 years now. I've been operated as a service provider, a customer, and now a vendor to service providers and customers struggling with some of the challenges of SIAM. And whilst the head of service integration for BG Group a few years ago was fortunate enough to work with some very smart people who helped me pull together a book on principles and practices for service integration and management. So it's a passion as well as a hobby as well as a profession. And what I'm going to do next is talk about how we as ServiceNow support some of the technology transformations that Jan Erik and David have been talking about. So David's already mentioned these three iconic points or iconic moments on the journey as you move from the left of this slide to the right and you move into that digital SIAM space. So this is fundamentally a technology-centric transformation that can be enabled by ServiceNow's suite of IT workflows. So IT service management, asset management, operations management, security, and IT business management. Those all exist to enable this transformation from a service ticketing based environment into a digital environment that can support a modern business. So initially in the service ticketing space at level one, I see this as a very technology orientated conversation. It's about establishing some foundational ITSM processes on a platform, starting to provide that single entry point for IT and putting in place some basic reporting for proactive and reactive problem management, just kind of getting the basics right. And as a number of our clients are already talking about, their approach is that they want to buy 85% of their standard processes from somebody else who will then maintain them and execute them on their behalf. So as you evolve further into the service management office, you start to really take this from a very IT-centric world and a service provider-centric world to a business service orientation. As David mentioned, you're integrating your CMDB with an understanding of the business. You're starting to bring that omni-channel requester and fulfiller experience to enable productivity and drive great experience. And here really what we're seeing is people are looking to automate the areas that provide high levels of automation throughout the IT operations landscape and really starting to drive that value, and then layering on top of that some advanced analytics so that they can really drive a continuous or continual service improvement agenda. As you step even further forward towards the digital SIAM space, really you start to say, okay, we need to be managing the full service and service provider lifecycle in near real time. The business is moving so quick, agile processes, DevOps are all here. You're starting to deliver more intuitive self-service with things like natural language understanding, and you're looking to really evolve these services in an agile way through IT business management so you can manage that full life cycle. And here we enable people to bring predictive intelligence through AI and machine learning to really drive that automation opportunity. But all the way through this, and it goes back to a point that Jan Erik mentioned earlier on in the presentation, this has to be about customer experience, both the customers of the IT organization, i.e. the business, customers of the business, and also those internal customers and partners that are trying to deliver efficient productivity within the organization. And that travels right the way through the entire journey. So if we move forward from there onto the next slide, then we start to see a world in which SIAM and IT used to sit as a service provider within as one part of the organization. Now what we're seeing is technology has become pervasive across all of the enterprise services and deeper into the true business functions of our clients. So what that means is that IT is having to make a shift from a single provider of a technology commodity to a multi-provider ecosystem that is really and truly a foundational enabler for the business. And as such, that means that the focus is shifting from, am I doing what I said I would do? Am I meeting my SLAs? To what impact and what benefit am I deriving for the business as a whole? How is technology enabling the business to thrive and survive and adapt to the challenges that it's facing? What this means is that the shift is going from IT service management more towards enterprise service management, and we're seeing many of the same disciplines shift with that, including SIAM. So the principles of managing service providers in the IT ecosystem are now needed to be applied across all of the service providers to the enterprise. So that digital SIAM layer is on the journey as well, in the transition from managing technology to technology enabling the business over on the right-hand side. And what we're seeing in our clients is that while ServiceNow can bring the technology for this transformation, we need the insight from people such as ISG and the know-how from partners such as Capgemini to really say, this is how you can use this technology to achieve this result. So as we're moving forward, and the world is continually changing, we're finding every new event is making this faster and the need for this transformation quicker and quicker. So if we move on to the next slide and have a look at how the technology underpins that. So here at ServiceNow, we like to talk about our goal as to make the world of work better for people. And really, we look to do that by providing great experiences that leverage technology-enabled workflows to help them get their work done. That includes people within IT and across the rest of the organization. So we do this through a set of core workflow capabilities, the IT capabilities I've talked about before, the IT workflows. We also have the employee workflows and the customer workflows to expand out to that ESM scope. And really, we're looking to establish a vision where the Now platform can operate as a platform of platforms, not replacing the rest of the technology architecture, but augmenting and integrating it together to support the end-to-end value chains and those productivity driving life cycles that fuel success in the enterprise. And digital SIAM is essential to that success, because each of those functions tend to come with a service provider that needs to be brought together and focused on the goals and needs of the organization. So ServiceNow is fortunate enough to be over 51% of the ITSM marketplace and a recognized leader in ESM. And so we're seeing this shift happen in real time and seeing that success realized in our clients with our partners. And it's also giving us some hints as to some things that may be coming next. So we're starting to see signs of service providers building pre-built ServiceNow technology to technology integrations to offer cross-industry, cross-organizational SIAM networks that can be more dynamically connected together. And likewise, we're seeing that journey continue from IT service management to enterprise service management. And now we're seeing more and more automation of business workflows to really point at the future, maybe even further in an integrated business with a digital SIAM backbone to connect to its service providers. So with that, what I'd like to do now is to hand you back to David so that he can take you through some customer case studies that really talk about how that insight, technology smarts, and transformational know-how have come together to deliver some great results. So over to you, David.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. So we're just going to quickly touch on 3 different clients that we worked with in deploying a service model and service capability for each of them with ServiceNow, and we'll expand on this in some of our future publications that should be available shortly. And so each customer is going to have its own set of unique sort of problems or characteristics that they came to us to help solve. This was a large media company, and they had grown by acquisition, and they had fostered some internal competition between their divisions. But at a point recently, they realized that the segregation and the divisions each doing their own thing within the IT arena was actually creating a tremendous amount of inefficiency and was actually creating some risk for the company. So what they decided to do is they said, they asked Capgemini to come in and propose a way to bring the various divisions together in a way that wouldn't hamper the competitive spirit, but would harmonize the operation, focused primarily on the ITIL functions and the customer experience functions, so that wherever you were within this company, wherever you needed to report an incident or you needed to request something from a catalog, that you could have a one-stop shop to go and get the knowledge you needed, report the incidents, ask for something from a service catalog, and then behind that there would be a set of harmonized processes so that you could count on your incident getting resolved, and you could count on receiving your item that you requested or the service that you requested in a specified period of time. And this is bringing great value across the organization. We're proud to have done this. At Bayer, Bayer had grown as well through a series of acquisitions, and what we offered Bayer is that, hey, we can come in and help you with your overall IT transformation journey, and as you do it, we'll integrate the various, the IT across all of these functions. But what was really exceptional about Bayer is their interest in driving a very, very modern SIAM methodology for managing providers. And we were really excited to be able to deploy this at a commercial organization where you can have SLAs that span across, their shared SLAs that span across all the providers, so that we end up measuring the service to the business, not each of the providers individually and uniquely. We're in the middle of that transformation right now, but we're really, really excited. Such a landmark company was wanting to work with Capgemini to go and help with this transformation, and then we're also running a number of their IT functions in concert with this. So great opportunity there, pretty advanced SIAM capability. We were also working with a auto company, and they had their own interesting position that they were in. They basically had said, look, we've done a reasonable job with our IT. We've done a good job in the way that we manage our IT, and we have fantastic products. But what we want to do is we really want to move forward to fast IT with an agile methodology, and we want to move from a transaction-oriented experience of users to really looking at IT as an experience on an experience structure. So they've set up. They said, look, employees and end users are going to have various sets of experiences as they interact with IT services. And so we don't want to look at it as this application or that application or the other application. We're going to basically structure our IT based on the user experience. And this is a fantastic and very forward-thinking approach to how to design and how to deploy services. And so they asked Capgemini to come in and deploy a digital service integration and management environment because, as you can imagine, once you say, hey, I want to do it based on the way the user experiences services, you need to basically stitch together all of not only your providers, but your applications themselves so that you can actually provide a seamless experience out to the consumers. So we feel very privileged to be able to work with this auto manufacturer to be able to bring them on this journey by deploying digital SIAM. As I said, more of this to come in some publications that we'll be providing downstream. And now I want to turn it back to Jan Erik to conclude our webcast for today.
Thanks, David. I really like what you said earlier about Capgemini recognizing that each of your clients are on their own digital journey and that they all will execute it at their own pace. And I think the 3 case studies that you shared with us are a perfect example. And it represents that no matter what the client is trying to do, Capgemini uses SIAM as the DNA or the foundation for everything that you're trying to do for that client. And that's why I recognize you as a leader across the board. You know, we looked at SIAM from every angle, both the business value, the operations side, the design, and then of course service information management. And we looked, of course, at ServiceNow at the same time. And we recognized both of you in your leadership capabilities really for 4 key areas that were very similar. We saw that you're very business focused. You understand the journey. Both of you mentioned how important that is in how you work with your clients. You're automation focused. You're able to bring in automation and do it in a pace and in a manner that the client is comfortable adopting that automation. You understand that every one of them are trying to transform. Your examples just now are perfect examples of how 3 different companies are transforming in very different ways. And then finally, you're looking at a shared service focus. You understand both the services you deliver, other providers deliver, and the client themselves deliver, and how do you bring that all together? You're really leading the industry with those innovations. Finally, on the last slide, I want to talk to all of those listening about what we believe are the next steps. Really, both your companies represent the best in the market, but also best in class. And as enterprises really consider their relationship with their providers, there are some immediate steps that really can be taken to better embrace a digital SIAM journey. First, understand where you are and where you want to go. Next, relate the journey to your business objectives. All 3 of us have talked about how SIAM has evolved to the point that it is completely integrated into the business. It's not just an IT-focused process any longer. And then create that service excellence checklist and then work the plan. I really encourage you to look at this link from Capgemini in the presentation, as well as on the next page, you'll see contact information for all 3 of us. There really are numerous artifacts that Capgemini has put together and have posted on that link, along with ISG's recent report. All 3 of us and our teams are ready to help you with your specific business needs. Thanks everyone for your attention today. It's been our pleasure to talk to you about, as Dave Arms said, something that all 3 of us are very passionate about and believe that it is what is changing the market. Thanks again. Have a great day.